Hi, so I actually committed to doing something for more than one video, and we're doing episode 2 today. Heartstopper episode 2, Crush, very exciting. Today's pinboard may look even more questionable than last time, but once again you can take that up with my printer and the cost of ink. I mean, look at this printing, like, honestly. I still have a cold because I'm literally filming this the day after I filmed my last video, because I got very excited and I don't know how long this creative motivation is going to last, so make the most of it while it's here. So yeah, let's get into it. Episode 2 opens as chapter 2 opens, with our little Nick and his tap tap tapping. In the comic we see Charlie's Facebook page instead of his Instagram, because the comic is from the past. Here we have a comic flashback moment for Nick of hearing about Charlie last year. It's done slightly different in the show, removing Nick from the situation more and making it more like his imagination telling the story, his direct memory. There's no way to watch that and not fully understand what Nick is feeling. Like, look at this boy's face. Like, he is caring for Charlie. He is feeling guilty for not stepping up, but also scared and confused, and it's all written there. Whereas the comic, with it being more of a memory, is just sort of like a direct, these things happening with extra panels of Nick's reaction later as he's remembering. We do get some of the same lines, like the, I mean, it's a boys' school, what did he expect line, and then as well the drawings of the bullies are the same. Another almost identical scene as Nick decides what to message. His possibilities are the same, but his final message is actually different. In the comic we've got Nick calling Ben a dick, like, just straight out of the gate. But again, like last episode, our show Nick is just a little bit more chill in that sense, and I think they're closer friends in the show, Nick and Ben. Not friends, but like they're in the same friendship group more so. And so he's not going to call him a dick just like straight away, though he does later. I love how this scene is all done straight from the start of the episode, with Charlie's drumming in anticipation of the text coming through, and then the bing, and he stops, and then we get straight into Sappho. It's just very well executed. Great job. And then their text exchange is the same, again with our poor little Charlie anxiously leaving Nick on red for far too long. We see less of the messages here because a lot of the extra information we saw in episode 1, but I really like how it's done. They're cutting to a quick flashback of Charlie and Ben's first interaction without feeling the need to kind of drag it out, then skipping to the message of, he never wanted to be my boyfriend, I guess he was just using me, which honestly it's like really a very vulnerable thing to say very early on in quite a confusing relationship. Like, neither of them fully kind of know for sure how the other feels, and this is very quickly like being really open. I like that that was kind of added to the show, because I think beyond any like crush or romantic feelings, it just really shows the like level of like comfort and openness and friendship that Nick and Charlie have very early on, because they are friends first, and like very good friends, and I'm just a really big fan of that. I think that this really shows just that like they're comfortable. They're just comfortable with each other naturally, and I just love that. Though not a fan of this, I watched this by myself, then with my mum, then with my partner, and then with my sister. All of us individually had the exact same reaction. I was just like, watching it first time, chilling, like, no, Charlie wouldn't send that. He'll delete this message like he's deleted loads of others. But no. Of all the typing and deleting that happens in this show, this message gets sent. Like, honestly, Charlie, just... Then we get more Elle. Obviously none of this is in the comic, but it's a treat. And now we get to meet Tara and Darcy, who have some great background moments in this montage, including Darcy's signature hair. I don't know about anybody else, but if I picture Darcy in my head, this is the hair that she has. I don't know why, because I feel like she probably looks different most of the time, but love it. This section sets up very nicely for the three of them together, as well as being incredibly relatable. I was definitely Elle, desperately wishing I was friends with specific people and then just staring at them a lot. So yeah, I understand. Then we get some more slightly smaller changes on existing scenes. The comic seems to skip ahead a little bit more, with Tao saying Charlie's been all over Nick for like a month. We also get like little snapshots of what they've been up to in that time, including when Nick just like fully picks Charlie up and starts like carrying him around for some reason. Very interesting, very obviously in love. Further proves that Kit Connor was perfect for the role, because him and Nick both have the energy of people who pick people up all the time. The show has Charlie, Tao and Isaac discussing, is Nick a ginormous heterosexual? The comic is in PE, but I guess the show already has a lot of like outdoor sports scenes, and there's only so much sports we can take. The conversation from that scene in the comic in PE is very, very similar to the one in the maths classroom, which is why I'm putting them together, because they're basically the same scene. Also in this scene, Charlie says that Nick told him he's straight. And I would like to use this opportunity to call out Charlie Spring. This is not Nick telling you he is straight. I mean, come on, Charlie. Do not make me bring up this text again. Honestly. More Mr. Ajayi. I do love his scenes.
So I babbled a lot here about how I have a friend who did not like this scene, really put her off the episode because she didn't like his advice that he gives to Charlie. And I just basically just went on for like a full 10 minutes on how it's really interesting how that stood out to her and it didn't to me, and how that irritated her and it just didn't bother me, and about how, you know, the universal queer experience is actually a lot more nuanced than people think. And basically I went on about that for a really long time. But yeah, so it was a very good summary of how what you are watching is just me throwing out discussion points like I'm in a book club, and I can only apologise.
More Elle, more Tara, more Darcy. Beautiful, perfect, I love them. As soon as Darcy says best gal pals, Elle would know exactly what the deal is here, but we'll let her off for now. The dynamic between the three of them is wonderful. I am so glad we get to see them apart from the rest of the group. If Alice is taking requests, I definitely say more Elle, Tara, Darcy mini comic content, please. Very much appreciated. And the reason we're all here, the incomparable Nellie Nelson. Their conversation in this scene is exactly the same. Nick's excited face saying you should come round to my house and meet her is exactly the same. Very lovely. The timeline continues on from the comic here, Charlie getting ready with his chat with Tori. Small dialogue changes, but it's not a major informational conversation, so the changes work very nicely. More of the sibling love that we love. Also, Tori already knows. Then again, shot for shot, bam bam bam, Charlie, he's walking. I don't think we can see Nick's house in the comic. It is number 34. I feel like that really stands out to me. But these are details we cannot hold on to sometimes. Then we get to the point where we meet Nellie, and it could not be any more similar to the comic if it tried. And then the hair touch moment. The same. Only the comic feels a little bit more awkward-ish, like comic Nick gets more self-conscious about it, I think. Bit of a sad difference here for us, but mostly for Joe Locke. In the comic, we see Charlie meeting Nick's mum, but no such joy is found in the show. But what does happen is completely lifted from the comic, with the omission of I have a 6-year-old brother, because show Oliver doesn't exist. And now it's snowing. on this beautiful sunny summer day, as is our movie magic ride. And again, we get a montage that includes pretty much every panel in the comic. Then in the comic we do get like a cuddly blanket Charlie scene, which is very lovely, but the show goes straight into
Charlie seems like a lovely boy.
It's only short, but it is exactly the same, like the dialogue, action, the same scene to the comic. Then our timeline gets a little bit mixed up and I start to regret some of the spacing choices that I've made on this board, but we move. We're going into the scene before school. I've pinned that like right in his head, that was an accident. And our introduction to Imogen, who I personally love. If I keep this up and do more episodes, I would like to talk more about her character later on in the show. But yes, Imogen, he was chirpsing someone. Now I will go back to never saying the word chirpsing again. The next scene is in the comic, but it is very different. Firstly, it does not occur in the comic till after the day at Charlie's house. I think 2 weeks later. We're just making the executive choice that this pin is the end of the episode because this is where this would go. So this happens at end of episode, which I'm putting down here. And also the conversation with Tao in the comic is over text, but what he says is the same. What I like about both show and comic, but more so comic, is that when the rugby match is over, Nick immediately is like shouting over to Charlie. In the comic, he fully just runs over and picks him up at this point. It's not at all surprising that Otis, Christian and Sai in the comic are like fully thinking they're a couple at this point. Again, it's less so in the show, but he's still just being like very open to Charlie, very like openly besties. We've then got the new edition of the group at Tao's house. I really like this scene. Their little group hug is very cute. I like that as soon as they start hugging, Isaac is already there to join in. It's very cute. I think it's interesting that this scene and the one in maths class earlier do a lot of work that there's a scene in the comic with Miss Singh and Nick's friends where they're sort of opening the discussion about, you know, you can't tell if people are gay from the way that they look or the things that they like. I think for the show, giving this conversation topic to the friend group works really well. Then Elle puts in the work for us. I feel like she would have worked it out a lot sooner, quicker on her own, but maybe that's just me, and also it wouldn't make sense for the show, so I'll just be quiet. Jumping back in time for the comic, we don't get the what's up scene. A great loss, I know. It just goes straight to the next Saturday. Because of the choice to move when Charlie finds out about Tara to before then, this conversation makes a lot more sense here and also adds to that comfort and openness that they both have with each other, that Nick sees that there's something wrong and that Charlie isn't letting the sort of like Tara of it all stop him being friends with this person. Then Elle befriends the school lesbians, which is very lovely. My heart melts at Tara saying you're officially part of the inner circle. Also, I find it very funny that they call themselves the School Lesbians. It's giving very teenage, no one understands me. They're a pop opera, I think, with the best act this school has ever seen vibes. If you're really befriending the School Lesbians, I think you're gonna have a lot more than just two friends. But I love it. Then we get Charlie's house. Very much the same, except Charlie in the show has a door knocker. The drumming scene also identical, same shots, same dialogue. Don't fix when it's not broken. So this here would actually go after this here. Comic, Nick and Charlie do some homework, play some Mario Kart, meet the family before watching the film. I think the show gives us enough of that. Obviously, if they had some deleted scenes or whatever, I would not complain. But it's very clear from the cut from drum scene to film that like it's been a full day. Now I would like to know what they're watching. I assume it's not like an actual film in the show, but I've always seen this in the comic and immediately thought it was Back to the Future. I have no evidence to back that up. I could look into it, but I haven't bothered. But yeah, that's something I would like to know. If you know, let me know. Now, oh, Charlie is sleeping. Maybe I should hold his hand. In the comics, we actually get Charlie waking up during this scene, and while it is a great moment, the vibe in the comic feels a lot more like fearful, nervous curiosity, whereas the show, with the little animations and the light, feels like a lot more of joyful curiosity. I think there's still fear and nervousness about it, but it's very much lighter. Am I making sense? All my leaves fell off at the bottom. Let's just put them over there for now. Everything's fine, everything's fine. Except that needs to be there. Okay. Then we have this, which there's a lot of hype around the hug and Charlie looking cuddly, which obviously amazing. But also the whole, I wish you didn't have to go. I know I repeat myself, but comfort and openness from the moment they met. Honestly, this is just as it is in the comic. You can't get any similar than exactly the same. Nick's nervous face as he turns around and the see you Monday, and then our girl Tori appears, and that's possibly one of my favourite pages from the comic. Just perfection as ever. Then we get Charlie telling the group chat the deets. That's something that the kids are saying. Did they ever say that? Not in the comic, I believe. I don't think there is a group chat in the comic until Paris. Correct me if I'm wrong, or I'll correct myself probably as the episodes go along. And then, of course, why am I like this? A really well done scene. Kit Connor kills it, obviously. In the comic, he is getting upset with himself and frustrated, and then does a Google search before then looking at pictures of Charlie on his phone. The drumming scene, not the snow scene. Interesting change. See, we have drumming scene. No, thank you. Snow scene, please. Whereas the show has Nick looking very happy, scrolling through his Instagram, looking at pictures of Charlie. Then he seems to get more upset. I think switching that around is good because, like with Charlie in the first episode, he's given a chance to breathe and really enjoy the feeling of having a crush and liking someone before then having that added questioning of sexuality. I think drawing on more of the joy of the experience rather than the struggle works a lot more for the show. Allowing them like these small extra joyful moments without consideration of their struggles mean that we have an opportunity to see more fallout later in the show without the overall tone being brought down too heavily. In other words, let them be happy. I never want to see a sad Nick Nelson ever again. And then closing the ep. Am I gay? And that's that, episode 2. I think as I go along there will definitely be more changes from comic to show. This one's very comic heavy, so I imagine there will be a bit more variety and also a lot more string, which again I don't think you can see. So maybe I didn't think it was possible for this to get more confusing, but I think it will. So yeah, look forward to that. Thank you for watching. If you made it through the whole thing, thank you for listening and paying attention. As I've previously mentioned, this is just so interesting to me. Like, I'm literally just like pointing out like, oh, he doesn't have a house number in the show and he does in the comic, but this is the kind of shit that just keeps me going. Yeah. And so thank you for watching if you did. I'd love to make a video for every episode, maybe. We'll get there, talk about some other things to do with the show and other things, maybe. We'll see how long my sort of carefree confidence lasts that I seem to have developed over the past few weeks. I don't imagine it'll last for very long, but we'll make the most of it while we can. So yes, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, please tell me what you think. I really would like to know any of your thoughts. And yeah, bye.